did mention Christian Petracca, and I'm very excited to get there. Do we know where he's going yet, Cal?
Oh, we're close, Tom, I think. In the next few days, we'll know his nomination of where he wants to be playing in 2026 and beyond. Today was a critical step in that process. He and wife Bella flew to Gold Coast earlier today. This is only 2 days after he was obviously in Adelaide meeting with Matthew Nicks and the Crows. He'll tour and meet with the Suns on Thursday, so this is a key moment for him as his decision-making ramps up. He has a lot to weigh up, but it's a 50-50 call now, and he's really close to making that decision over the next coming days.
If I'm a Melbourne supporter sitting at home, is there any chance he stays at the Dees?
Oh, I think it's pretty slim. In saying that, the deal has to be right for them to accept it. As we say, he's a contracted player for the next 4 years, so whichever club he chooses will have to come armed with a really good hand to make sure Melbourne ticks off on this and says it's a done deal. But he wants to move. This has been a move 12 months in the making. He obviously tried really hard and he was probably more emotional about it this time last year. This time around, pretty calm, pretty steady, and will make a call on going to an interstate club.
Kel, you mentioned this is 12 months in the making. Last year it was big Melbourne club.
Yeah.
Why both of these clubs are not big Melbourne clubs, they're interstate clubs with their own big supporter bases?
Yeah, and that's part of the decision-making that he has to make way up at the moment as well. Does he go to the hometown, be the hometown hero of South Australia and the Crows to bring him back to success, or go to Gold Coast where it's an off-market, off-Broadway option for him? So his view has changed on this. The things that he'll be weighing up in the next coming days, though, Tom, will be the relationship with the coach, Damien Hardwick and Matthew Nicks, the culture, the list profile, and where does he fit in? How can he help?
So I think the presentation that Damien Hardwick has given Christian Petracca, and they've spoken at least a couple of times via phone and Zoom the last couple of weeks, has been outstanding. But he's also impressed with the Adelaide list build. He knows Alex Neil-Bullen really well. In fact, Neil-Bullen heard he is part of the reason that Christian Petracca became the player that he did at Melbourne. So I agree with you, Cal. It's a genuine 50-50, and both clubs believe they're in with a red-hot shot. I do also think that Adelaide is further advanced when it comes to money negotiation than what the Gold Coast Suns are at the moment. Yeah,
and Gold Coast has more chips to play with, don't they? They have the picks. They have a lot of trades going on at the moment. Sam Flanders on his way out. Melbourne are one of the clubs who are interested in him. Adelaide, though, Hurdy, only have a pick 14 and a future first-round pick, and at this stage don't want to give up any players.
So who has the power in this? Does Christian Petracca have the power where he goes, or does Melbourne have a bit of power as well? Because Melbourne can stop it happening. If Melbourne, Melbourne, I would imagine, want him to go to the Gold Coast because the options are better there. That would seem to me to be more than a 50-50, 60-40, because Melbourne can push him that way.
Well, they can push to an extent. They can push back on a trade deal, but he has to still be happy with where he wants to go. He's still contracted. So if worst case comes back, he goes back to Melbourne.
Yeah.
So
which list does he suit better, do you think, Jimmy?
Well, I'll try and make the case for the Adelaide Crows, and I've pretty much put him here in the forward lineup because we know Christian Petracca can play forward and midfield, and the reason why I've just put him in the half-forward line, and I've got rotating players, and I think that's important for those players rotating just as much for Christian Petracca, because as the season rolled on, the load on Jordan Dawson playing 100% midfield time, they look dangerous when he goes forward. We know the option you've got Rankin in the midfield and forward, and then, of course, Neil-Bullen being that high half forward and coming into a contest. And I think that's a pretty attractive option there. When you look at that forward line, we talk about experience and then the rotating options coming through the midfield.
Look, is it a good option, Jimmy? And it looks like, with that forward line with Christian in the midfield, it gives them strength. But for me, it's the Gold Coast Suns. I think Gold Coast are just so strong through the midfield currently. If you look at that first selection, that first line, that's the first line of battle in the middle of the ground. Witts, Rao, Anderson, Petracca. That is a dominant line that'd be very hard to beat. Rolling through Humphrey. I mean, the fact that Took Miller has to sit out in the half-forward line and roll through, Fiorini, Weller on the wings, half-back. It is a midfield group that can contest with anyone. And I think you put that up against the Brisbane Lions in what was the final at the Gabba this year. It competes pretty well. And
just the final word on Christian Petracca. This is a football decision, so lots of discussion around his brand and off-field pursuits. It's been footy for him this year, and this is a football call. It's not about what's good for him off the field. So do you think Melbourne would be satisfied with one top 10 pick for Christian Petracca? How high? So let's say pick 7 for Gold Coast Suns. If pick 7 ends up to going from St Kilda to Gold Coast for Sam Flanders and then it comes back, I think more would still be asked for, but it's a very good starting point. Yeah, 4 years remaining on a deal. I don't think any of those two clubs have a problem with the money that he's on, but you're right, Melbourne do need to be satisfied. And I think the coach, you've mentioned it before, the coach is such an important part, Jimmy. I would imagine that, yes, he wants to look at the team, the field, the city, but it's the coach he feels will bring the best out of him as well. And I think both coaches are very good coaches. Matthew Nicks is built from the bottom up, and really his defence, he started with defence and gone from 0 up to finishing on top of
out at the end of the home and away. But Damien just seems to have an aura about him after what he's done in football for the last 25 years and the way he's built this team. I wouldn't be surprised if he chooses Gold Coast because of that Damien Hardwick factor.
Tom, he wasn't the only player to be meeting with the Suns in recent times. Jamarra Ugle-Hagan flew into Gold Coast last night. What can you tell us?
Yeah, very late last night. We'll just we'll have a look at him here at the airport. So Jamarra Ugle-Hagan met alongside his manager, Robbie D'Orazio, today at the Gold Coast Suns. I'm told the meeting went reasonably well. There's still a few hoops to jump through when it comes to the Gold Coast Suns committing to Jamarra Ugle-Hagan. We know there's a lot of off-field issues at the moment, and I just want to address one now as well. And the Gold Coast Suns and the Western Bulldogs are acutely aware of this, but it's yet another chapter in the Jamarra Ugle-Hagan saga that hasn't helped him. It's not necessarily the end game, but a couple of weeks ago he was at the Warrnambool District Grand Final when he was evicted from the ground for what I'm told is unruly behaviour. Not ideal for Jamarra Ugle-Hagan, and again something that the Suns don't need. If the Suns are going to convince their fans, and if the board is going to be convinced that Jamarra Ugle-Hagan is the right person, they can't have any more of these incidents take place.
Tom, just on the Western Bulldogs, he's got another year to go on his contract. Does this impact anything? Does that contract need to be negotiated? The Bulldogs happy for him just to go and find another home? Where does that all sit?
So this, I've got a microphone here which I'm enjoying, but this negotiation I think is pretty easy between the Western Bulldogs and the Gold Coast Suns, Cal. I mean, whatever the Suns want to give, the Dogs will take. But how does the money work?
Well, this is the bit where Jamarra has to be on board with this as well. He's got $900,000 owing to him or thereabouts on his contract for next year. He's in a place where he's happy to take a step back in terms of that. He knows that he's been paid this year, he hasn't played this year, so it's a step back to go forward. He sees this as the opportunity for him, so that will be well and truly reduced if he does get to the Suns for next year.
And Jimmy, clubs are willing to take big swings at the moment, aren't they, and improve their team and get them from a finals team to a preliminary final or a grand final or premiership team. Bringing two players in of this ilk for different reasons can test your culture, can't they? The two, you know, Christian, I imagine, is a very strong personality. Jamarra has obviously had his issues. How do you feel they'll handle culturally having two very, very talented players come in?
Yeah, I think you're speaking about two different personalities completely, but as you mentioned, they're different for many different reasons. And I think they've got a confidence, the Gold Coast Suns, that now they've come through being the young start-up club, you know, making your first finals. We see the way they've embraced, I guess, the new attitude under Damien Hardwick, and they're probably confident that they're at that stage where their core is getting 100 games plus and have the confidence that they've got a strong group that can, you know, bring out the best of Ugle-Hagan and bring out the vintage football of Christian Petracca, even though Petracca was still pretty good last year.
So no trades live in isolation, of course, and we know the Suns have been interested in Charlie Curnow. Charlie Curnow has been interested in the Suns. The package of Petracca and Jamarra has overtaken Charlie Curnow for the Suns as a priority.
Well, they won't have to give as much to get it, will they?
Well, they still probably have to give a fair bit to get Petracca over the line. In terms of picks for Jamarra, no, they won't. But the idea of him as a forward to bring into that group, plus Petracca, that means that I think we're nearly down to a one-horse race for Charlie Curnow at the Swans.
Yeah, really. So let's just touch on that as well. So you reckon the Swans are the only club that Curnow can go to if he does leave?
At the moment, Geelong haven't made any offer yet. We've heard from Andrew Mackie saying the price will be set by the Blues. Geelong just don't have players they want to part with. Now, the Swans do have options for them. They have some untouchables, but beyond that, there's players who could be thrown in, and they have better-handed picks.
But you talk about the players that the Swans can throw in. Is there anyone that Carlton will want to... I mean, Charlie Curnow is a big name. That's I don't think they've actually... They have got players under their untouchables, but I don't think that gets that done.
Pick 9 and a future first is a much better start than where the Cats' picks are, though.
Yeah, and then Carlton would have to assess, well, how good is Sydney going to be next year? And that's very much an open question. Yep. Last one on Jamarra. Do you believe he's more likely to be at the Suns next year than at no club at all? Or how do you see this one playing out?
I think more likely at the Suns than nowhere.
Wow.
Yeah. Were you?
Yeah, I agree. I think all the due diligence they've done, if they're still meeting with him, then unless he stuffs up from here until the end of the trade period, and that's a big if based on what we know, I think it's more likely that he's there.
The coach is a big part of this too, isn't he? Yeah. And he's clearly driven this. He loves the idea of the talent. He's going to be riding this on really closely.
I think this is a Damien call. It sounds like this is a Hardwick call.
Cal, the Tassie concessions, or list starter pack, if you will, was released today.
Yeah, it was, and it was significant. It's been a long time coming. These list rules have been developed over 3 years, but finally they landed officially with the Devils. Here's a few of the highlights here. They've got 11 first-round picks over 3 years. That includes includes those 7 picks in their first draft. 4 of those picks that year have to be traded, and across the 11 picks, 6 of them have to be traded. So those caveats are brought in by the AFL to make sure that the other clubs can get a hold of the early picks and not just be held all together by the Devils. The other big parts of that, the $5 million sign-on bonus, that's a huge number. We didn't expect it to be quite that much. Access to father-sons. Any AFL player who's born in Tasmania who played 100 games is now eligible as a father-son for the Devils.
I want to ask you, 2027, that comes into play for trading and haggling now?
Yeah, it does. I mean, you can trade 2 years down the line now. So if you're a club offering up picks or thinking about taking on picks for the 2027 draft, you need to be well aware that those picks don't mean as much as they do this year. They don't mean as much as they do next year. So that's where, if the club throws up a first-round pick in 2027, just have it in mind that there's another 11 picks coming through across those couple of years.
If you're someone sitting at home, there's a lot of numbers there, there's a lot of picks. Yeah. I mean, compared to GWS, for example, that seemed to be a pretty good package the way it is. I know you've got to select right, you've got to pick right. How does it compare, and is it enough, and what do the other clubs think of it?
It compares favourably. The other clubs have been walked through this in recent months, so they're aware of it coming through to today and what it was going to look like. The sign-on bonus, though, at $5 million is significant because they can use that over 2 years. So the maximum they can use in 1 year is $3 million, the other year 2. So how they use that, they can spend it all on one player and break it up, or they can use it and divvy it up on a multiple.
So it's better than the Giants?
Yeah, I think it's better than the Giants. And they also have the mini draft picks as well, which the Giants were a huge advantage that the Suns didn't have.
Yeah, they've also learned from where they've gone wrong with the Giants and the Suns in the past, which I really like. So this $5 million sign-on bonus, so $3 million in 1 year. So hypothetically, they could give Nick Daicos 2.5 to play and another $3 million as a sign-on bonus.
Yeah, they could, and that'll be the offer thrown at him. I've got no doubt that Tasmania will throw a significant offer at Nick Daicos. So this is a player who is signed till the end of 2029, Nick Daicos, though, so it'd have to be done as a trade. But they'll be throwing huge money at him. They could do this deal, the 8-year deal, $2+ million on the table, plus a $3 million sign-on period. It means you could be earning 5+ in your first year. That's a pretty tantalising offer. We're going to see some huge numbers bandied around. Some will be just for leverage. Some will be actually legitimate.
I know this might be hard for you to answer.
$5 million.
That's a lot.
But if you were at 22, 23,
yeah,
in your prime, you would have been the type of player they would have targeted. Because,
so would you, Jimmy, but anyway.
No, because you're clearly a leader from an early age. You're a big name, a big attraction of the game. Would that be something that you turn your head to leave Melbourne from a big club?
It'd definitely turn your head. The Nick Daicos one, I just don't know because of his family history and it's Collingwood. I mean, this is the other thing that was getting off track a bit. But the thing about being part of the Collingwood Football Club is they look after you for life. And yes, that's a huge amount of money, but the money he'll make for the rest of his life, being a Collingwood person, may just outweigh that.
Gary Ablett left the Cats.
He did, but yeah, that's a very good point. But Collingwood's a different beast.
I just see a world where the first $4 million player is also the first $5 million player, who's also the first $3 million player. Quite incredible the leverage they have at their disposal in Tasmania over the next couple of years. Hurdy, big news today in the AFL. The bounce is dead. It's been a part of the game for a long time now, since the very start, but Greg Swan and the AFL confirmed it will be no more, largely to protect the bodies of umpires and promote the best decision makers. What are your thoughts?
I don't like it. What it's doing is it's removing a skill. I mean, you talk to Simon Madden, the great ruckman, the craft of ruck work will go out if they remove the bounce, because the uncertainty of the way it goes up, yes, I understand it can go skew if, it can waste time, but it's not only the craft of the ruckman. Jimmy, you know when you're an on-baller in that centre bounce, that you can't move you sort of take your area. You can't move too early until that bounce goes up and you're sure it's a true bounce. This will actually not only make the ruckman different, it'll make the way the players on the ground play differently and make it just a bit more blander than it was. And also a 6-6-6, that centre bounce is so important. And I just think the slight variation changes the way ruckman, but also those on-ballers play around the ruck work.
Yep, we've got a jump ball. Yeah. That's pretty much a jump ball.
Do you not like it, Jimmy?
I always like the quirkiness. I guess call me a traditionalist or a dinosaur with that. I love the quirkiness of the bounce, but also Hurdy touched on it there, that the unpredictability. I know don't want them going right angles, but if it came back slightly on a ruckman, as Hurdy's touching on, that meant you had to adjust, you couldn't overcommit. So I sort of enjoyed that element of the game, but it's not the hill that I'm going to die on either.
No, and also the sub is gone, and I think we can all agree that good riddance to the sub.
Who's the first coach they're going to ask for 6?
Chris Scott, he likes to whinge occasionally. All right, that's enough for this segment on Footy Furnace Trade Edition. It feels a bit weird holding onto a microphone. We'll get that sorted in the ad break. But Collingwood news after the break. Cal's got an exclusive on Essendon. And how will West Coast use their pick 19? Stay with us. Welcome back to Footy Furnace Trade Edition. Cal Twomey told us a little bit earlier that more than likely if Charlie Curnow does leave Carlton, Sydney is in the box seat. But let's deal with the Blues side of things specifically, Hurdy. How did Carlton handle this, understanding they have a key player, a dual Coleman medalist, who wants to get out? Well, I think they've got to lean into the draft a little bit, don't they? They've got to lean into those picks, because I think if Curnow wants to go, it's definitely a bad thing for Carlton as a list. But at the moment, Cal, I want your opinion on this. If they get these picks, they're going to have to start putting some new talent in before Tassie come along, because if they don't, they've obviously got their father sons coming along, which brings in really good talent. But if you don't have talent on your list now, you don't get it the next 2 years, you're gone for a couple of years. Well, we saw the picks that Tassie's going to have, so you need to get ready for that. And they are. The challenge for them, though, is that Harry Dean for a bid is going to come before their pick 9 comes in or pick 10 comes in for the compensation for TDK. So that'll get wiped out. That's why they put pick 10 on the table. It's up for grabs. They want to trade that into the future and get a future first-round pick for that, because the new bidding system is going to make it really, really hard to match a bid for Cody Walker. They'll be able to do it, but they need an extra first-round pick. So the tightening of the system has actually become a real issue for them. And do you agree on their list that they're just not enough top-end talent? Yeah, there isn't. Absolutely, there's not. But they've also gone hard at some trades this year too, though. They're going to use picks on Buku Khamis, Campbell Chesser, Liam Reedy. So are they the right call? Do they shift the needle, though? Well, probably not. They've clearly looked at athleticism, though, in that group. Just back to Cody Walker, for people who are unaware, the picks that they need. So just hypothetically, if he is, say a pick 3, you need as close to pick 3 to get that done? Yeah, under the new system, they'll only be able to match with their first 2 picks after that bid. So that's the way it'll be. In the past, we've seen Will Ashcroft matched with 400 picks in the 30s and 40s. It's not going to be like that anymore. You're going to have to match with 2 early picks. So a bid for him. We watched him play on the weekend, Jimmy. He was a star. He's the son of Andrew Walker. He could be a top 3 pick next year. That would mean Carlton might need pick 6 and pick 12 to match. So they need to do some manoeuvring around that. So Jimmy Bartel's been a big part of Mad Mondays in the past at Geelong. This is 10, 15 years ago when time was different, clearly. But Mad Mondays are no more at the Cats after the club released a statement today referring to this sort of behaviour, these dress-ups and the social media posts, as inappropriate and significant errors of judgment. They mostly related to Bailey Smith, it must be said, and also Max Holmes. Hurdy, I'm going to ask you, the AFL has been diligently intervening in almost every single club issue for the best part of 4, 5, 6, 7 years. They now seem to go the other way, and they're less interventionist than they ever have been before under Greg Swan, especially when it relates to Geelong. What's the best method to deal with these sorts of issues? I think it's the best is to let the clubs deal with it, but I can't imagine if the clubs don't deal with it the right way that the AFL won't be intervening. I think that the AFL behind there saying, you deal with it or we'll come over the top. I mean, it just goes to show, Jimmy, that footy trips are out, or out a long time ago. Mad Mondays are on their way out, and the things behind closed doors will be the best way to do things. Yep. Let's move on. Jamie Elliott has re-signed at Collingwood for 2 years. Cal, I feel like this has been coming for some time, but he certainly had a look at the Suns. How close did the Gold Coast get? Well, he spoke to them. He spoke to the coach, Damien Hardwick, so he's been doing the rounds with plenty of chats recently. They were well into him. As you've reported, Tom, 3-year offer that they put on the table for him. The 2 years plus a trigger at Collingwood eventually got him over the line, around that $600,000 mark. He's always wanted to stay if the deal's right. So now the attention shifts very quickly to what Brodie Myercheck does. The Collingwood Footy Club has its Copeland Trophy on Friday night. I'd expect on Saturday we have a decision, and I think it's favouring towards him moving to Melbourne as a free agent now. Is that good for Brodie Myercheck's career to go to Melbourne, or should you be saying at Collingwood, Jimmy? Well, he's probably been playing for unders for his whole entire career. He was a late starter, of course, coming from Port Melbourne as a defender, really, and has played his whole AFL career as a forward. And so you can't blame him at looking for longevity, but also getting paid for that later stage in his career. I can't help but think for Melbourne it's a couple of years too late, Hurdy. This is the exact sort of player they needed in about 2022. Well, with the midfield they had, and they're losing some of their midfielders, they definitely need some quality forward line players, but good on Brodie to get some money. I think he's been a very good player for Collingwood, and I think every Collingwood supporter would celebrate him on the way out. Tom, do you think Bobby Hill stays at the Pies? I do think he stays at the Pies because I think he wants to stay at the Pies. I think if he opened his mind and he was keen to go, then maybe they might look at it Collingwood. But you saw this post on another social media post last night. Bobby Hill very keen to play in black and white next year, and he's an important player for them. I do agree that there's been some clubs over the past couple of months who felt as if that he might be vulnerable, they could get him out, but I can't see it happening at this stage. Can you?
Long-term deal, I tend to agree with that position. Just on the Pies as well, they obviously said goodbye to Scott Selwood last week as an assistant coach. He stepped away from football for the moment. So they're on the search for assistant coaches. Josh Fraser as well has left the footy club to go back to Carlton. One person they do have their eye on is Daniel Giansiracusa, who's been a senior assistant at the Bombers over the last 5 to 6 years under Brad Scott as well. He's right-hand man running the midfield there. So he's on their target list.
Wow, is he a chance?
Well, it's one to keep an eye on.
Is this to help him, well, get to that senior coaching role? Because whenever we talk about the next group of names, is this to add another layer to his CV, just another club on there?
He's obviously coached his own team previously at Footscray VFL, the Western Bulldogs, spent some time with the Bombers. Came short a couple of times as well recently in the running for head coaching roles. Most recently at Melbourne when he was part of that senior 6 mix, I would say. So if it's something that he is weighing up, then clearly that going to Collingwood as a club that's going to be contending again and again would be something in no time.
Hurdy, let's not sugarcoat it. If Giansiracusa leaves, that's a disaster for Essendon. He's so important for them.
Yeah, he's not good. I know the players speak very highly of him, and he's a coach that everyone speaks very highly of, particularly the players. So that would be a huge loss, I think, for the Bombers.
Something he's weighing up as well. He has been in talks on a contract extension, as you've previously reported. So that's all part of the mix as he comes to this decision.
Yeah, Essendon were incredibly confident that he would stay a couple of months ago. So I wonder if that's changed, or indeed his head's been turned by the Pies who have those vacancies. And of course, if you want to be a senior coach, you're probably better off being at a club that's in the window rather than the club down the bottom of the ladder. History tells us that. Yesterday, Cal, you reported the assistance package that's been given to West Coast for, I guess, continued poor performance. They've won just 11 of their last 91 games, which probably warrants something. Take us through it and how it played out behind the scenes at AFL HQ.
Well, there's been different submissions in recent weeks and discussions between the club and the AFL. Different things have been put forward. We talked a matter of weeks ago around their exemption they wanted on a free agency front. They kind of got that in the end in a roundabout way. So they've been given here, as we see, an end of first round pick in pick 19 and 4 rookie positions. The rookie positions they can use over 3 years. That's to target some experience, Jim. So add some players there, some Tom Berry types. They've got some interest in him. Devon Robinson potentially. Also add their NGA players that they've got access to. Pick 19 is the big one though, guys, because if Brandon Starcevic, as we expect, heads towards a free agency call to go join the Eagles from the Brisbane Lions, that could be turned into a trade using pick 19. That goes to the Brisbane Lions. Everyone ends up happy.
I don't agree with it. Do you agree with it?
Well, I agree with the fact that if North Melbourne got what they got a few years ago, then West Coast had to get something.
But they're different clubs. North Melbourne don't have the resources outside. I mean, West Coast have the resources to do whatever they want around their footy department, and they're not spending it.
The resources aren't working.
But they're not
if you're
spending
11 from 91.
Yeah, but they're not spending above their soft cap. And I would suggest you spend above your soft cap, particularly if you're now going to get four more rookie spots. You're going to have more players on your list. That's where you need to spend on development to fast track those players getting up the ladder.
Do you like assistance packages, Jimmy?
Not normally. I'd like to see, I guess, things added into your football department first, and then also some accountability too. You've got to actually review your football program. That, if you're going to put your hand out for assistance, well, that gives right to someone come review your football program. I don't think that's hardly onerous on the rest of the competition, what West Coast got given. They do have some extenuating circumstances with some forced retirements as well.
Jimmy, pick 2. They're now getting pick 2.
Yeah, but pick 2 is because of Oscar Allen leaving.
But if they took Starcevic on that free agency, that wouldn't happen.
Well, they would have traded for him, just use pick 17.
Yeah, OK.
But
so it does affect.
It does have an impact, but it's probably not as onerous as other packages being handed out.
Do they go to the draft with picks 1 and 2, Cal?
Yeah, I think they do. They'll have some questions about pick 2, I reckon. I think there's a couple of clubs with multiple picks that'll try and see if they can trade up. That Cooper Duff title as a ruckman, Willem Dersma, they look to be the leading 2 candidates at the moment. Just on the exemption that they tried for, I think it'll actually be that rule in the coming seasons. Right. I think there'll be a way where if you're a team outside the top 8 and you bring in a free agent, you won't have to worry about your compensation being diluted by a free agent leaving the club. I think this will be the turning point in that. The AFL is considering that, and I think that's...
Even if you finish 9th?
Yep.
Yeah, so anywhere outside the top 8?
Yep.
Interesting. OK, that's one to watch out for in 2026 and beyond. Welcome back to Footy Furnace Trade Edition. There's a few captains who want to leave their clubs this year. One of them, and he might find it hard to get out, is Jai Simpkin at North Melbourne. Is there any update on whether he can find a new home, Cal?
Not yet. I think this is one that's going to play out in the last week of the trade period, Tom, and he's right behind a few of the other big names looking for new homes. So 4 years to go on his deal, about $1 million. There hasn't been a suitor emerge yet.
And we hear that it's just about him not wanting to play. He wants more midfield time, wants to play in the centre square more. Surely it's got to be more than that.
Well, I don't think that'd be the only thing, is it, when you raise a trade request like this? And if you're good enough, you're in the midfield, aren't you? And their midfield mix hasn't been working for them permanently over the last 3 years under Alistair Clarkson.
So I think if he was playing half forward or wing at a premiership fancy, he'd be okay. But he's looking at going, I'm captain, I've put in the hard yards, I'm not playing midfield and we're losing. So that's his perspective.
But is, Tom, the issue, as you touched on there, Cal, is it the cost to get him in? Because clubs that have got space are in the market for other players, as we can see in Petracca and Merrett and alike.
Yeah, it's going to be impossible to get him in, I think.
Yeah, I mean, West Coast would love him, but does he want to go to Perth or the team that's bottom of the ladder? Of course not.
Jimmy, how long would you have lasted in Bomber's office if you said, I only want to play midfield?
I don't think I would have lasted very long. I think I would have exited at a rapid rate.
Yep, I agree.
The Zach Merrett discussion continues to bubble along. It's a big night tomorrow night, Cal, because we all expect him to win his 6th best and fairest. He'll be there, he'll speak, and then I expect the wheels to get moving here, and there's a lot more cards still to be played.
Do you think he requests a trade as of Friday or Saturday, officially? And is that the next move that he has to make to get out of Essendon?
I think if he's going to get out, he has to request a trade within 48 to 72 hours after the best and fairest, and it has to be formal.
But hang on, Essendon are very confident that he's going to stay. I mean, they've been on record, he's staying.
There's clubs that are on record all the time saying things that they're... I mean, Paul Guerra is confident that Petracca is going to be at Melbourne next year.
Paul Guerra's not saying that now.
He did say... He used those words.
But he's saying if we can get a deal that's good for the club, we'll do it. That's not what Essendon's saying.
So, Tom, has other clubs inquired to Zach Merrett's management? Of course, you know, have the Gold Coast inquired? Or is
the
it
Gold
just
Coast Suns, the Adelaide Crows made a call as well, the Western Bulldogs and Collingwood. They were actually a bit further down the line than maybe what we thought at the time. But I think for this to work, Cal, from a Merrett and Hawthorn perspective, they have to be all in on each other at the expense of everyone else. So Hawthorn pushes Petracca to the side and Merrett pushes everyone else to the side. This is the Lexus keys to the game, and the question is, how does this deal get done?
Well, I think it's going to take multiple first-round picks to get Essendon thinking about it. And this is a hypothetical here. We see Merrett for pick 8 and a future one, and Cam McKenzie bundled in there. Look, pick 8 is a starting point, but it's only a starting point. And this is yes, he's 30, but he wants to play another 6 years. He's going to deliver them a top 4 berth next year.
But that's not just a future one, that's a future top 10.
It has. So this is where I think another club has to get involved. Hawthorn has to get another club involved in this via a player that Essendon might like, or getting a better future first-round pick that they can eye off. And they did that last year. They got involved with the Carlton picks. They swapped some things around and got them Tom Barras and held on to Carlton's future first-round pick this year. They've done it before. There's some creative ways. It's not always just Club X v Club Y being involved in this. So I think Essendon now, is setting it up to be, if he goes, they get a very good deal. If he stays, they keep a very good player.
And it's in some ways similar to the Carlton situation, where if they don't get some top-end talent in before Tassie come in, they're not going to get it.
Just speaking of the Bombers as well, and you wonder whether this will be involved too. They're very much involved in the chase for Sam Flanders, who's weighing up. I think the 3 favourites are now St Kilda, Melbourne and also Essendon. We hear a lot about Stephen King being the lure at Melbourne. The lure at Essendon is actually Dean Solomon.
A board member.
Board member who was a senior assistant coach at the Suns in Sam Flanders' first year at the footy club. They are going really hard for Sam Flanders, and Dean Solomon is a bit of a secret weapon in their chase.
And Solly still lives up that way too.
Are all the deals going to be likely the same? We've heard reports about the Saints offer being very attractive for Sam Flanders.
Yeah, it has to be 5 years regardless of where he's going to go. So that's one part of it. And it's going to have to be $800,000 plus anyway, anywhere he goes. So all about the same, Jim. He's on a really good deal at the moment already.
And that pick 7 is on the table as well for Sam Flanders from St Kilda, which of course we mentioned with the Petracca discussion as well, and the Gold Coast Suns. And that would be a great result, I think, for the Suns if they can get that for Flanders, if he does choose the Saints. I think that will ramp up now that the Gold Coast Suns' best and fairest is tonight. News of the day, Sam Butler, we reported earlier on, has signed a 2-year deal at the Hawks. He rejected interest from West Coast. And a young Richmond player, Cal, wants to join the Eagles.
Yeah, the Richmond links continue there. They've got Andrew McQualter, the former coach at the Eagles now, the former recruiter Matt Clark, who picked up Tyler Young. He's now requested a trade to go to the Eagles. He wants to be a part of their future. 3-year deal on the table, so that one will get done. He's out of contract. Interesting what picks that becomes, but that'll happen.
And Stuart Dew has joined Port Adelaide as an assistant coach, back to the club where he played in their flag in 2004, 21 years ago. Welcome back to Footy Furnace Trade Edition. The Saints are getting super aggressive, they're bold, they're ambitious, and they're unashamedly having a crack about bringing players in from other clubs and re-signing their own players on big money. Jimmy, take us through what you think their best team looks like next year, because it's entirely different to what it looked like this year.
Yeah, had to whip this together, and that's a pretty good side with a good mix of some experience in there, but lots of young talent. They went to the draft recently. I know you love the Flying Viking there, Cal Taru. He's got some excitement. Silvani, obviously some strength down back. We know Sinclair, Wanganeen, Malera, they're all guns as well. But Flying Ryan actually adds a little bit of creativity on the forward line, which is great. So they just need some more creativity around the forward line. And of course, Tom de Koning was the signature we expected all year. And maybe they could land Flanders as well. But Tom, Cal Wilkie, they're at fullback. He's already in the building, but he was an important re-signing.
Yeah, he didn't just talk with Luke Beveridge over the phone, Cal. He also met with Luke Beveridge among a contingent of other Western Bulldogs officials, which I guess tells you how serious he was about exploring this trade. And even though Saints supporters would rubbish that, the fact that their future captain is meeting with a rival coach when he's under contract tells you that he was looking at it. Now, he's decided to stay.
How much have they topped him up?
Josh Gablich reported today it's close to $1 million, so that's a top up by about 250 or 300k, and I trust that entirely. So that's a decent top up, but it's also something that was necessary given what he was on and what the Western Bulldogs were offering.
Well, they were offering him a deal that was close to $5 million across the 4-year entirety, so that happens there. Now what the Saints do with Rowan Marshall is the watch, isn't it? I think Rowan Marshall will pursue this move to Geelong stronger in coming days.
Does that mean, so when you say pursue this move, you do believe he'll request a trade or explore it? Because the nuance is important.
Yeah, it is, but in the end, it's the same thing. I think if Geelong are opening the door to it, they've also going to have to move off the Charlie Curnow chase. So these things are going to work in tandem, I think, and then it'll be up to St Kilda to say, what's the price and what's the value from a trade point of view? If I'm St Kilda, I'm asking for Geelong's future first-round pick rather than their pick this year, because their pick this year can't get any worse, really.
And I wonder if Geelong would do that as well. I mean, it's clearly a need for them. Steve May is a player that is essentially on the scrap heap, even though he does have a year remaining on his contract at Melbourne. He played golf with Justin Lepich last week. They are golfing friends as well. I would be surprised if Collingwood went after him just because of his age. Doesn't mean another club won't. It won't be the Western Bulldogs. I'm trying to find a home for him, Hurdy, and
it doesn't look like there is. It just doesn't look like there is a home. But late in the trade period, there may be. But I think he'll stay at Melbourne.
And Cal, James Worpel, we just mentioned the Cats. A lot of people expect that could be a deal.
Yeah, either side of the best and fairest on Saturday night for the Hawks. I expect James Worpel to officially announce that he'll be joining them as a restricted free agent on a 4-year deal. So that one's been in train for a while now, and that's where he'll land.
And the Hawks will get a nice pick that they can potentially use as part of the Merrett discussions with that as well. Jimmy, Liam Jones, can you find a home for him next year? I feel like he's more attractive as a defender than Steve May, but yet the Dogs have let him go.
Yeah, I know the Giants are looking for experience, I guess key defensive stocks and depths. That's why they're looking at Jaden Laverty as well. So they could be a club who'd be looking for someone who is there, plug and play if need be.
Port Adelaide are looking for a footy boss, Jimmy. You've been mentioned. I believe that they wanted you to take the job. It was yours. If you wanted it, you toured the facility. You said no. Why is that?
Everything about the role was appealing to me, the football club, the people involved. We know the football tradition of Port Adelaide. It's one of the most storied we've got in the game, and they're pretty bold and where they want to go. As you mentioned earlier, they've added Stuart Dew and others. But it was just a family, got young kids who well established in school, and I just couldn't leave that.
So if a job like that came up in Melbourne, you'd look at it?
It'd be a serious consideration. I do have an itch to scratch at some point to get back into clubland. The competitive nature of football, yourself, you'd understand this, that better than most, that the weekly cut and thrust of football is thrilling.
What are we going to do on Sunday nights if he leaves us?
No, for the meantime, we're happy with you on the Furnace desk, Jimmy, but would support you move back into the AFL environment when that does happen. I'm sure it will.